Earlier this week, the Chief Secretary presented a draft budget requesting $3.97 billion. This morning, we chat with the Chairman of Tobago Chamber of Commerce, Diane Haddad, and the Corporate Secretary of Tobago Civilnet, Mr. Leroy George, and see what their response is to the THA draft estimate presentation. Good morning and welcome to the Now Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And how are you guys doing this morning? Diane, you all right?
I'm fine, thank you. After I was dragged out of bed, yeah, I'm good.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time and waking up early this morning to join us. And you as well, Leroy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, initial takeaways. I wanna start with you, Leroy. Civilnet. What are your initial takeaways from the THA draft budget presentation?
Well, first thing, we were appreciative of the style of the finance secretary in that he was very simplistic in his delivery. And as such, it was an easier to follow budget for the average man in the street than what we were accustomed to. That was one of the takeaways we had. Something quite a few of us noticed is that there wasn't much said about ways to increase revenue for the island. Stuff like non-tax revenue, etc. And we would have liked to see a bit of an improvement where that is concerned, where the actual presentation is concerned. There was quite a bit of pick-on between the two sides, making reference to party politics. And one thing we agreed on just about unanimously is that since the Tobago House of Assembly is the oldest political institution in Trinidad and Tobago, predating party politics, and since the positions of Chief Secretary, Finance Secretary, Minority Leader, etc., are political offices, but they are not party offices, we would like to see a little bit more professionalism in terms of how they go about these very serious discussions in the House.
All right.
There's a lot of my party better than you type peacock taking place.
Yeah, understood. Diane, from a commerce perspective, let me know, was there anything that stood out to you in this draft budget presentation that you say, all right, we can benefit or this will hurt us?
Actually, the budget was a very good presentation. It was clear for us that some homework was done, let's call it in the 6 months that they were sitting there, because I have to admit that we were getting a little antsy as to nothing was happening for the 6 months. There was no communication. It was very distant. After listening to the budget, there was a sense of renewed hope in terms of the ideas and so, because it meant that people did go into that office and do some reading, and therefore a lot of the things that came out there are things that we participated in years ago as ideas that should have been materialized. What I thought the budget very light in terms of presentation, just like Leroy, and therefore I actually sat and listened to the entire thing, and not while it was going on, but in the night, because I was very tied up that day. I had a funeral. And so I did actually sit and listen to the entire thing. It kept my interest, and I'm usually not good at listening to budgets. But I must say that, yes, the presentation was done in a manner that caught your attention and kept it. However, most important for us is the delivery of those things. We have a 3-year period because 6 months have gone. We have 3 years because the next 6 months takes you into election mode again. And it is a lot that is on the table there on those pages, but with the right team and the right assistance, you can pull off quite a bit of it, because Tobago is pretty small and therefore you can fix a lot of things. But major concern would be how and if the party involved has the resources, the support mechanism to pull these things off. That I think came off very, very clear for us in terms of whether they can do it. So there is that apathy from the business community, yeah, well, we've heard a lot of things before and we haven't gotten anything that was spoken about. So, we do have that question mark over our heads.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that stood out to me that was very interesting was that they requested 3.97 billion, and out of the 3.97 billion, they're saying that 3.07 billion of it is meant for recurrent expenditure. As somebody, Diane, I'm going to stick with you for this one. As somebody representing the Chamber of Commerce, which deals with the private sector for the most part, how do you guys respond to that, to the fact that so much of it is for recurrent expenditure under the government's bill?
Well, you know, Rockers, we have spoken about that in the past, and we have beaten on that every year. However, if you are going to have a transition is something that, first to begin with, takes a good transition, and to bring it straight to success with real good people takes about 10 years. And this is a transition of not shutting down everything to start up. This is a transition where you ease everything over. And I'll tell you, you do need, unfortunately, the same type of funding to keep things while you wean people off and you get the other ideas activated so that persons have other opportunities. If you don't do that, you can actually destroy your human capital in terms of people's level of living, their commitments, things like that. And we just, I want to say we're out of a pandemic. So 2 years of no activity can destroy a number of persons already. And therefore, because of it, we have to be careful how you do a transition. Transition is a very, 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 very crucial thing. And many people just think, I just put new people in and I just do this. And that's not a transition. A transition takes a lot of strategy, a lot of structure, and a lot of work to get it done peacefully without harming. Now, you will have persons that will fall off the rails automatically, but your intention cannot be to throw people off the rails. There's a difference in that, in doing a transition. So normally we would beat up on that, and that's correct. We did listen to it and have a concern, but in understanding the other aspects of the plans, we were saying, okay, this year, let's see what will happen. But then that is aligned to and connected very much to what I was saying just before, which is that we need to see the delivery of all the things that are promised. And there are some quick wins that they can do with engaging the right persons. But as usual, we are waiting to see. But we don't have time. Time is not our friend right now in terms of what has happened.
Understood. Leroy, is $900 million enough for development expenditure?
900 million is enough for development expenditure? Of course,
well, I'm asking you, do you think it is enough?
Yes, it is. It is enough. I don't think that's what we're going to get. Even though the required amount was 3.97 billion, if history is any indicator of what's going to happen is that we're going to get just over 2 billion, maybe 2 billion, 2.1, 2.2 billion. And so we're not really too focused on that particular figure because some cuts are going to have to be made. What was presented is not what's going to be presented after the central government budget is read and we discover what the figure is. At least almost certainly that would be the case. This is a new administration. There were times in history when Tobago's allocation was increased exponentially after the Dispute Resolution Commission would have put forward an argument. We went from having a THA budget of 350 million or so per year to having a budget of 2 billion. And that happened overnight. Well, not overnight literally, but immediately after the Dispute Resolution Commission was to put out its findings, etc. And likewise, we expect that this THA administration, once they're able to prove that they could manage more than the usual 2.2 or whatever figure that is. I think the last time it was $2.2 billion. And once they could show transparency and accountability that we wasn't seeing with the last administration, justification to start building an argument for more would happen. And then we could start talking about that 900 million for development because that could actually be a reality.
I hear you. Diane, do you share the Chief Secretary's optimism that the GDP is set to increase between 2022 and 2023 as compared to what's been happening for the last 10 years?
Well, again, it all depends. Now, let me explain this to you. He did a very good analysis or presentation of the analysis of how the funds are paid and not paid and what is reported and not reported from the island of Tobago. And that is real in terms of organizations that have offices on the island, but everything is reported in Trinidad and everything is paid in Trinidad, things like that. It is correct. How he intends to, and I also think he did very good representation based on what Leroy just said. Let us get to the point where whether they will get it or not get it. I don't even want to think, Leroy, the negative part that you won't get it. Can they deliver what the need is? In other words, I give you 900 million. Can you actually deliver your projects or whatever within that 12-month period in order to justify anything else? And this is the biggest question.
Yeah.
Do they deserve it in terms of us getting there? Yes, it's about time it gets from the lowest figure to the upper end in order to get going somewhere because the island has been stagnated. How he's going to increase his GDP really is determined by how he utilizes resources and what does he do to ensure that things are accounted for from this side. But the explanations he gave are true. Those are facts. And that's why I said I was very impressed when I heard the presentation from the angles it took, because it was actually finally Tobago being represented in a real way in terms of understanding where the issues really lie. And it wasn't shammed over or whatever. So we'll see where that goes. But Leroy, I want to say that I really wish that we could think a little differently, that we all use our voices for the uppercase.
I want to know, Diane, before I get back to Leroy, Diane, tell me, what are some of the things that the points that you want to see covered? The things that you're saying, all right, the deliverables. What are those deliverables? Give me at least 3 that you want to see happen within the next year.
Okay, so he spoke of, first to begin with, you have an economic, I want to call it a crisis going on.
Right.
In terms of the fallout from COVID. And prior to that, we had 13 years of drama of going nowhere. So Tobago has suffered financially. And the private sector would have borne the brunt of that. And we need to be able to do things differently. He did speak of a government loan guarantee, or not government, a THA guarantee that he was going to be working on. That is a quick win. He can get that up and running in no time. He spoke about going green in terms of the green project and the island being, let's call it, rogue in terms of flipping from where we are now to getting into a green. Those are things that he can do immediately. He spoke about housing. Those are things that once the land is allocated and whatever, they can get a couple of those things with the right persons. And Leroy spoke of the transparency. To do a crooked transaction takes a lot longer than to do a straight transaction, right? Because the crooked transaction has to have a lot of how to hide it. A straight transaction is let's just go do it. So this is where the issue resides. And I feel once they can do that, we should be able to get a couple of those things off quickly. And they need to open up in terms of who are the persons getting the contracts to actually deliver. So you give smaller people contracts so that more people benefit, rather than what we are seeing, where it's certain people that get all the business and the other, because you have a generation of persons who are complaining that they feel that they did not have a chance. And that would have caused the change in the party choice anyway. That's right on the ground. And therefore, those younger people need a chance. And therefore, if you involve more persons and had more going on at the same time, Tobago's small, it could fix quickly. So he does have a good thing going if he engages the right human resources, opens up to more companies getting involved in terms of delivering in a smaller scale. And therefore, because we all drawing on the same pool, and therefore you need more minds with better ideas, quicker action plans, and smaller things. We don't need truck and trailers over here all the time. We need more, let's call it 5-ton trucks. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
we
definitely.
need to move. Our roads are smaller, so we need to be able to move quickly.
Of course.
We do not need everything massive. Smaller, more effective, efficient, we'll get it done in shorter time.
Nice, man. And Leroy, before we go, can you tell me some of the things that you would like to see implemented over the next year that you can say, all right, we will see positive growth here?
Well, we did see, even though we had that budget presentation about a week ago, only 2 days ago, there was a following THA sitting, and we saw a lot of positive coming out of the development of agriculture. The secretary in charge of agriculture being Natasha Pantin. She made some reports on some planting shoots that were being developed in one of the labs here in Tobago, how many they sold, how many were available for sale, how many will be available for sale very soon. And those figures were remarkably nice. Like literally, I think it added up to like 45,000 developed it in a very plants, developed it in a very short period of time. They haven't been in for more than 6 months, only about 6 months now. And so we feel as though there is some seriousness when it comes to developing Tobago's food security. And so I would really encourage the new administration to put some more behind that agriculture because they're doing some good work. And food security is extremely important, especially in this new changing global economic landscape.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us this morning and for sharing your thoughts and response to the THA Draft Budget 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Take care. That's Diane Haddad, the chairman of the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, and Leroy George, the corporate secretary of the Tobago Civilnet, joining us this morning to share how they feel about the THA Draft Budget Presentation 2022. We take a quick break and we come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.